Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Nen Show Podcast. This is the last one for Hitman Reborn, and I'm your host, Craftsdwarf, and this is my co-host, Mathwiz. Say hello, Mathwiz.
Hello, Reborn. I don't know. I don't have a bit.
We're done. It's over. We're free. Which isn't like, no, it's not like I disliked it, but, we've had stuff on the podcast that I liked more. But before we get into that, so the poll is over. Shaman King won. So next time we'll be reading that. I'll just give the I'll read it again at the end of the episode. But we're reading chapters 1 through 53. It's a little, so it's looked like a pretty decent breaking point. Because it's awkward. Because like I just if I did it in straight arcs, it would be like 83 chapters, but then the next arc is like 20 chapters, and then it goes into the biggest arc in the series, which is like 150 chapters. So I inevitably, so what I kind of did is I just stopped the first arc part way, and at what looked like a decent breaking point, and then we'll finish that arc, and then do the next arc, which is shorter. So hopefully it works out. It's looking to be 5 episodes just for Shaman King, with sort of up in the air regarding the spin-offs. So we'll see. It might just be 1 episode. It might be 2 for the spin-offs if we even do them. So we'll
I know out. When I picked Shaman King, I didn't realize that there were spin-offs.
Well, one of them is a sequel and some of our prequel stuff. But if we it depends on how much we are into Shaman King, or if we want to like put it off like we are with Saint Seiya Lost Canvas for later. And then we'll be reading Trigun. No one gave a suggestion for splitting it up, so I'm just going to split it straight down the middle. So we're going to do the first episode on just the first 3 volumes of Trigun, and then we'll do 2 episodes for Maximum, just 7 volumes each, since it's 14 volumes long. So maybe it'll split at an awkward point, but it is what it is. So, I haven't read it, so I can't just go through and be like, yeah, this is a good point to stop. So, oh well.
I don't know. There's still a potential chance that someone makes a recommendation while we're doing Shaman King. Like, hey,
that's very true. But yeah, I'm not sure because I don't know. My whole thing with Trigun is I know it was a Toonami favorite, but I feel like I know the manga exists, but I don't really know how big the readership is and how much people care for it beyond like, hey, Toonami has this show. It's a good Toonami show has the source material, so. But because it could just be that not very many people who watch have actually read it yet, so we'll see.
That's true.
That'll change, and people will read along with us, especially because it's not a long series. Like 3 episodes might be like the shortest series one we've done for the Nen Show. I don't know if we've done one that's longer than 4, or shorter than 4 yet. So, but anyway, do you want to give some general thoughts on Reborn before we get to the reading, or this reading rather before?
I know that one thing I didn't realize until finishing it was like, oh, this is the first time, because when I started doing my completed media thread last year, we weren't doing the Nen Show, and then we did like a catch up block. So this is the first time that I'm like, oh right, I can like log this here. And
yeah, we finished something for the Nen Show.
Yeah, and in that, because obviously I wasn't gonna get too detailed with it because we have a podcast for that. I more or less summed it up as it's like a B tier battle shonen for me. Like, I liked it. It's not a favorite. And generally I think, obviously like the translation and like scan quality didn't really help it. But yeah, it's like when Hitman Reborn was doing stuff I liked, it was really good. Outside of that, it was a manga that I read.
Yeah, see, because I definitely feel like it definitely had a couple high points, but overall it's very much like, it's an interesting piece of Jump history, like as far as like series that started as gag series and then become battle series. I think it might be one of the more interesting cases of that, just because of like how the various elements were integrated into each other. Like, because it's very obvious that it's the case, but the way it works out is kind of neat. But aside from that point of interest and like liking a couple characters, and especially the Inheritance Ceremony arc, it's not a shonen manga I really like, a battle shonen I really like. So it is what it is.
Yeah, and I mean, like I've talked about it pretty much every episode that like it has some of the best art I think that we've like covered. I feel like, you know, initially I think I chalked it up to like the scan quality, but like it does kind of seem like there can be kind of like a, I don't want to say like a peak and valley, but like when it's like initially kind of setting everything up and it's a little more like comedy focused, it seems like like when it's the battles is where it feels like there's a lot of more like high detailed like just, you know, I don't have any examples to look off of.
I think
like,
I kind of get what you're saying, because like to give an example from, I read the How to Make a Shonen Jump manga, or what was it called? The Shonen Jump Guide to Making Manga, excuse me. Where they talk about how like sometimes artists, like what they want to do and what they're good at don't necessarily line up. Like to give a current example, the author of Spy Family has said, I believe, that he doesn't actually like, he's not particularly invested in the story or characters. Like this isn't something he wanted to do. It's just something he's doing. He's now like it, you know, happened and now it's a massive success. Right. So, you know, so which is just, you know,
I remember people like on Twitter then taking that to be like, oh, he doesn't even like his own manga.
Which, you know, I wouldn't go that far. Like, you know, there's nuances to it, right? Like he might have been able to include stuff later on that he likes more, and like he's still doing the manga, like, but you know, and like the example they give in the Guide to Making Manga book is like the perspective character, so to speak, like it is, they frame it like a new author talking to Jump editors trying to make their series, and the editors giving him advice. And then there's also other manga authors who give their own advice in different parts of it. And like, oh, maybe, you know, you want to do a battle series, but you're actually really well suited for doing romance. So maybe, you know, like with, you know, Amano, she wanted to do battle series, but ended up like maybe at the start her art wasn't good enough for that. So she did a comedy instead. So, you know, which, you know, she was good enough at to make a Jump hit, basically, right? Like it went for a year just as a comedy series, which, you know, it was at least successful in that regard. So, you know, maybe it's that kind of thing where it's like the thing she wanted to do and the thing she was good at, you know, maybe she would found a way to mix them. Maybe she didn't particularly like, I don't know what her thoughts on the manga are. So I was just a suggestion as to why, you know, because as far as like the art goes, you know, maybe if she was more into the battle stuff, like, you know, making the art a little stronger during those parts might have been part of the production of the manga, but that's purely speculation. So
because I was also like, I wasn't trying to say that as like a critique of it, like just because it's not consistently like 10 out of 10, you know, it feels like it might have been like an economic choice, like, you know, weekly manga
that's also
is
very
hell.
reasonable. Yeah.
So
yes,
you know, if it's like, okay, you know, want to make sure that like the really big moments like hit as they should. And so just kind of like it's never bad, you know, it's like it's just not always as consistently like, you know, peak. But that said, you know, character designs are never not good. And it's like, yeah, overall, it's like the comedy generally, like in a general sense, didn't gel with me, but there were definitely, like, over the course of the manga, there were jokes that, you know, so it's not like the comedy always missed. It felt like, I think kind of the more, like, the more it went along, if anything, I feel like the comedy maybe started to click with me more when it wasn't the main focus.
The funniest thing in the manga is in this reading for me.
I think I know what you're gonna say.
I fucking bet you do.
Because I also thought that was funny.
Oh my god, I really hope it's the same thing. But yeah. Is
it, you know what, I just gotta know, is it about the mystery man?
It's about the mystery man.
Let's go.
Oh god, it's so funny. It's so good. Alright, anyway, so starting off with the reading, Varya is doing things. There's a whole bit about recruiting Flan, who they call, I don't know, translation's inconsistent. Because I think they actually changed, very visibly changed groups. Like this first one, is I Eat Manga, and then later it's Manga Stream, our favorite.
Oh god, when I saw the manga stream logo, I'm like, no, no, no.
I thought we were free. At least we
Yeah,
will be for a while because Shaman King and Trigun both have official releases, so we're safe.
I felt like I definitely noticed an uptick in like slurs and curse words when it was manga stream.
Yeah, that checks.
Not that there were none beforehand, but
like the actual translation, it's fine. It's just maybe some of the spices they add on are not fitting. So you know, but so anyway, they find Fran. I don't even know, and it sure was a character from the future arc that I didn't particularly care for, but was decently popular. So they come back, I guess. Then you also get the arc of Boleno coming in and having a meeting, because there's the whole we find out about the game and stuff. Well, first
I guess I did think like,
oh yeah,
like I didn't really remember much of that character in the previous arc, but I did think it was kind of funny, like the dynamic that they had with Mukuro, where Mukuro is this very serious, like brooding character, and you get a lot more of him kind of being the butt of the joke with like, oh, pineapple
how do I
hair.
Deal with this kid.
Yeah.
Yeah. That was pretty good. You're right. Also, I just noticed it because so when he calls Varia a tooth decay fun guy, I'm pretty sure that's a reference to Anpanman, which is he's the superhero who is made of Anpan, and he like rips part of his head off to feed children and people. It's an anime / manga series for like very young children. Kodomo, like 3 years old. And I just thought about it because like he's food based, because he's got the apple head and he calls Mukuro pineapple head. So yeah, just a little something I noticed. Because that's one of those references that like the audience would intimately understand because it's like referencing Dora the Explorer or Blue's Clues, right? It's like something that like people grow up on, but obviously like anime fans in English speaking communities do not give a shit about Anpanman. Though another reference that I think is funny is One Punch Man, or if you pronounced it in Wanpanman, it would be closer to like how it's pronounced in Japanese. Where their outfits are very similar. There's like a color inversion, but they both wear like red, yellow with a white cape, I'm pretty sure, and they're both bald. So I don't know, just completely irrelevant to the manga, but just while I was on Anpanman, I guess. So but yeah, they literally like I do like how they're like, okay, they meet Fran and they're like, okay, you can have him. We don't want him. So anyway, Chrome gets transferred into the school, which is neat. A little late, but it is what it is. Because like there's almost nothing that has to do with the school in this arc, so
yeah,
it's more just for like her. She's been abandoned by Mukuro, so sad. And then they do an impression contest again. They did one before, right? I'm pretty sure.
Yeah,
I feel like so call back. Then we get a flashback with Checkerface and stuff about the Archipeleno and how they became them. Then it turns out they basically have to fight for the Archipeleno choose representatives who then have to fight each other. So it's kind of a not quite a tournament, definitely more of a battle royale than a tournament for sure. It's also like works out as a way to sort of have a lot of like Suna's previous like antagonists all be relevant in the arc, which I think is neat. Like even the fact that like Hibari is because he's been an ally up to this point, and then he joins one of the other teams is like, well, he was kind of one of the antagonists in his first introduction, or he was an antagonist in his first introduction, right? So I thought it was neat.
Yeah, it definitely works as like a final arc, like I feel like a common thing that people talk about with long-running shonen is that like when it comes to the final arc, like because there's such a big cast, it's like not everyone can be factored into a huge conflict depending on what it is. But this is like, I feel like the main other example I think of is like Gintama, where the way that series is structured lends itself well to all, like basically every relevant character coming back in the final arc. And I feel like this is definitely another kind of good example of, you know, like all the major players from previous arcs kind of getting the opportunity to do a thing, and that's cool.
Yeah, and I think for the most part the connections or some of them definitely made sense, and it also like Byakuran was already shown last arc to be around in some capacity, and so boom, here he is, and they explain that.
Yeah, and it's also
actually
like you have the members of like the Seven Guardians who, have always kind of been like, well, like Mukuro being a former antagonist, but and like Hibari also being someone who fought with them before. So it's like they were always kind of like tentative allies. They were, like kind of the enemy of my enemy is my friend situation. Yes. So them going back to kind of their roots is also interesting.
Yeah. I was gonna say, because I'm at that part where the Skull is trying to recruit the Shimon family, and I guess as far as characters coming back is like, considering I liked these guys, that they don't have a major role. Like, I understand, but it's a little sad because I was like, oh, cool, more of these guys, and it's like they kind of just don't want to get involved, and then they all get beaten. And it's like, okay, never mind. Unfortunate. But yeah, Mukuro ends up with Verde, who he ends up having a thing that helps him out. His machine. Uni gets works with Byakuran.
I think maybe a good way to describe like my feelings on this arc, but also it kind of works as like my feelings on the series as a whole. Like when it comes to the whole like Curse of the Rainbow stuff and that kind of like, I don't know if world building would be the right word, or like the general like plot, or the what's like the backbone of what like makes the events of the series happen, and like maybe the set pieces or something along those lines. I feel like those tend to not they don't tend to grab me as much. But like on an individual character level, which is obviously like facilitated by the stuff that happens, but like I think my general takeaway from the series, it's like there are characters in it I like, but like I think the general like structure of it maybe isn't as much my thing.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, because I definitely feel like as you were saying it, I just thinking about how it's very much kind of like, and again, this isn't a bad thing at all, especially considering again how difficult making a manga weekly is, but there's a level of just like coming up with it as you're going along, right? Where it's it's not like these are big plans laid ages in advance, right? Just like a lot of your explanations don't make me think back a lot of the time to like, oh, this thing and it's coming back and it all works. Which again, it's not a bad thing, but maybe that lack of cohesiveness in that way, because that's the other thing I was going to mention, is that like this arc, like it is the last arc, but I still feel like the story could have kept going, right? Like it felt like the story ended because the author wanted to end it, rather than like the story reached its conclusion and has explored all of its ideas. Like, because the arc, I don't feel like it's the final arc, but it's not like every single character gets involved, gets a big moment, or even the major ones. Like, Gokudera and Yamamoto, I don't like, they fight a little bit, but I don't remember them getting some big like satisfying conclusion to their character arcs or anything. So it just gave me the vibe of like, yeah, this could continue, or could have continued in some possible world, or future, right? It just happened to have not to. So, which it was just the thought I had finishing it.
Yeah, I think this series kind of has it's like the way that it tends to, I don't like, revert isn't the right word, but the way it tends to settle back into the status quo, but that being kind of like the point, and that's the note it ends on, is that like, well, you haven't really changed that much, but it's like you've barely changed, and that's like the important part, that it's like, just because the daily life is still kind of the same at the end, like that's what they're always fighting for, and like the connections made along the way, the power of friendship. It's I don't know. It's like, I think in that way, because of how it tends to kind of like pick up from square one at like the beginning of each new arc. It definitely kind of feels like it is something that could just keep going.
And in fairness, we do, like, we get the flash forward at the end of Future, so we, like, do know all the characters are, like, where they are roughly 10 years from now. Like, they're all safe and healthy, and, you know, Suna does take over as the 10th, right? So, you know, it's not like there's no finality whatsoever, but, you know,
well, I think
more just,
also the way that, like, that future is handled, I thought that's just, like, that's, like, a potential future.
That's
but
fair.
The fact that they were stronger in the past, I think, like, you probably could read it that way, that's the future that they end up getting to.
I was talking about, because there was
maybe I misunderstood.
I'm thinking about the last future we see literally in, like, the last 2 pages of the arc, where the coffin's closed. Like, we don't see them do anything. We just see they're older, they're alive. Like, we see Chrome,
okay.
like, we see future Chrome, who we never saw throughout the arc. Right? And I was talking about that future at the very end of the arc.
My bad.
Which very well could have, you know, because I'd have to go back and look, but I can't, like, the Reborn wasn't there, I don't think, because he'd be a teenager, or a preteen or a teenager, by that point, assuming that, you know, because from what they seem to think at the end that the curse was broken, therefore, they're just going to age like regular babies now and become adults and eventually get old and die. So, you know, I don't think Reborn was there as a baby. Like, he just wasn't in that vision, you know, that panel at all. But, you know, he could have, that doesn't mean he was dead, right? So, yeah, I don't know. But anyway, probably the only, like, I mean, character who's been around but wasn't, like, an outright antagonist, you know, Imitsu, his dad being part of the thing was neat. That led to some neat stuff. And yeah, there's the whole talk of alliances where they end up allying with Byakuran, but not, Reborn rejects an alliance with Enma. Or rather, he rejects an alliance with Skull. So anyway, unless you have anything else to add about the sort of beginning introductory part, we get to the first battle. I think it's like a 10-minute battle.
Yeah, I don't think there's really anything I had to add.
Yep. So I think, yeah, we get Suna versus Iemitsu. And like, one thing they stress this arc is that for all the growth they've had, the adults are still way stronger. Right? Like, Iemitsu just fucking trashes Suna. And of course, whenever the Arcabaleno become adults, they are just monsters.
Yeah, but I thought at least, like, by the end, I like the way that they handled, like...
Yeah.
You know, that it all kind of came down to Suna, where everyone else, like, you know, like, Dino was there, but, like, couldn't really hold a candle to, like, the final. But yeah, definitely in the beginning, it is, like, you know, they're still faced with a lot of challenges, I guess. Yeah,
and then also as the battling starts, we see Hibari is in as an enemy, which is just like, let's go. Oh, and I just noticed you have because I was like, wait a minute, where's He-Bird in this panel? This end cup chapter spread with Hibari, and I'm like, and then I see Fawn's monkey is riding He-Bird, just like Fawn is riding Hibari. So just sitting on his head. I thought that was funny.
Oh yeah. I was looking at the, like, popularity poll part.
Yes, I was gonna get to that. Because yeah, it's like a split poll where they had the characters ranked based on whether, you know, popularity and strength. So I thought it was interesting. You know, like, Suna he was ranked as the strongest character, but the second favorite. Where Hibari is the favorite character, but only the second strongest. Which I thought was neat, just because, you know, Suna is the one who kind of all the hopes end up being on, right? Like,
yeah.
So, though of course, like, in actuality, like, the Arcabaleno as adults would be, you know, the strongest, but you know, it is what it is. Like, Reborn's at the third but you know, there's I guess, recognition involved too of just, like, how much like, you know, we haven't seen a lot of the Arcabaleno and what they do, and they have cases like Verde where it's like, yeah, he fights later, but they you know, initially explain that, you know, he's just a scientist, like, his strength isn't in fighting necessarily, so, you know. And yeah, Flan was probably the most surprised placement for me, because I this character didn't read to me at all as like he was just such a whatever, and it's like no most popular character. I'm like, oh, okay.
Yeah, I'm definitely in a similar position where it's like, yeah, I guess he's kind of a weirdo, and that's neat. But yeah, he just kind of existed, and it's like, oh, 4th place, huh?
Zanzus is where like and it's just interesting to see some of the differences. Like you have characters that I feel like are liked in both ways, or are both recognized as strong and also liked. But then you have like Gokudera, who people don't consider strong but they like him, and then you have Zanzus, who people don't like him as much. Like he's only 9th place. Like he's still pretty well liked, but he's recognized more for being strong. Reborn especially, where he's like recognized for being strong, but he's only 13th place popularity wise. So just a neat poll. Because I like how Reborn had a bunch of different polls, right? So even if we couldn't tell what they were easily,
it's the one thing Manga Stream at least did was translate the popularity poll.
Yeah, the thing with Manga Stream is like they're not the worst fan translator, but they have very like funnily specific problems, and they're also like, because they translated a lot of popular series at a particular period in time, then we just end up, especially like Bleach was probably the worst because the official volumes weren't like online at the time, so he had to read like after having like probably one of Viz's best translations from the time period, and then boom, Manga Stream. It's like fuck. So unfortunate.
It's like the issues that Manga Stream has are just very in your face.
Yes. But yeah, Hivari immediately takes out fuck. I got like 3 names bouncing around my head, and I don't like Kyoko's brother. I can't remember his name right now. But yeah, he just
that's fair. There are a lot of characters.
Yeah. Well, I felt like, how did I forget? It's like Ryu something, but I like, how am I forgetting one of the more like relevant and important characters of the series so far? My brain is just not working right now. And yeah, of course, Hivari is ultimately like following up on his words, because he did say in his fight last arc that he ultimately wants to bite this guy to death, and here he is biting his Tsuna's allies to death. So
yeah, it is really funny that kind of the main thing that like Kyoko's brother did in this arc was a gag of just getting eliminated immediately because he forgot it was funny.
Ryohei, I just remembered his name. I was like, I know there's a Ryu or Rio in there as a start, and then the rest time just then I remembered it. So but yeah, he does help out later, which is neat. But I mean, actually the way he helps out later is neat, because he's a healer, which is such an odd role for like a boxer, like hot-blooded character to fulfill. Like it would have been interesting to see him do more of that throughout the series, of just like being the medic basically, but also still having his like fucking my blood is lava attitude about it, right? So like he even says heal to the extreme. Like there's something funny about that. I like that.
Yeah.
So it would have been neat to see more of that, just because it just the idea amuses me. But it was only the once, I think. But yeah, Chrome's condition is worsening, and Mukuro talks to her about it. I do actually kind of at least I like the idea of where Chrome goes this arc, but I just as a whole I'm still a little like with Chrome.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, Enma gets his shit kicked in by Varia, so the Shaman family decides to help, since they don't care about Skull, who he's a shit. I mean, he did protect Enma, which I mean, which I guess you could also say was protecting his own interest, but he's still shit.
Oh yeah, here's a joke that I remember liking. I may be a little bit ahead, but like,
that's fine.
when it cuts back to like Mukuro's squad doing something, and then you just get like a pose where it's him and the goofy kid, and they're all in like fruit hats, and it's just like fruity style, and it's like Mukuro, this very serious character. It's good.
And he's like, quit fucking around. No, I don't like it. No. Because I do kind of like the jokes where the character's like in on it for a second, and they're like, no, what the fuck am I doing? This is stupid. And he doesn't even have the question mark in the panel beforehand, where it's like, what's going on? But yeah, Suna's beating himself over losing to his dad. there's a little tease about 2 teams being eliminated.
Dino dressing up as a teacher and still being a klutz is really funny.
Glasses, yeah, his characters and glasses are good, and yeah, the klutz, he's still Dino.
Yeah, it's like Dino's already. Oh no, you go ahead. Yours is more important.
I was just gonna say, like, because he did like he's on Reborn's team, and like that was the start where it's like, I need you two to help me. And yeah, I guess he was I guess he did have some moments, but I don't know, he's just not a character I got a lot out of in general. Like from the he's a handsome dude, sure, but yeah, what were you gonna say?
Yeah, that's fair. I was just gonna say that like Dino is probably one of like the hottest boys in this manga, so it feels very targeted that he just dresses up as a teacher with the glasses, and it's just like, I am sure that the female readership of this manga appreciated the vision.
I mean, they're represented in the manga because of the way you see the students react.
Yeah.
Like they get pissed off when oh no, never mind, that's something else. Oh yeah, no, they were like, why is he talking to Suna? Like, that's so mismatched, and they're all pissed off. Also, there a couple pages after that, we see Uni, and this first panel with her looking really big. Like, I know it's because it's literally the same, artist, but like I just get vibes of Akane from Psycho-Pass with just the way her hair is, and like,
Yeah, no, I see it. I think another joke I liked was where Hibari confronts Dino like in the hallway, and Dino's undercover as a teacher, and it's like, I'm here to fight you, but it's like, I'm just waiting for the signal, and it's like, well, can you at least help me like carry this stuff with?
Be a student, please. I'm a good student. Hibari's like, Hibari does not in fact help him. I don't think so. Hibari's so funny. Also, there's I don't know, Xanthus being silly, where it's like the alarm went off and Xanthus was like, "Shut up," and just went back to sleep.
Yeah.
And the way he eats fucking food, like he's just got a whole ass plate of spaghetti, fucking coiled on his fork, and he's just eating it like a fucking chunk of, like Luffy eats meat off of a bone. Like he's a fucking animal. Xanthus is so good.
He's goofy.
Yep. But anyway, the next battle starts, and this is where we get Byakuran. Well, yeah, they fight a bit against Mukuro a bit, and this is also where I'm pretty sure Byakuran talks about how like why he's helping Suna, and we find out that like in the future where he won, he just like he still didn't get what he wanted and was completely unfulfilled. And I was like, oh, that's a neat way to have Byakuran come around, where it's like, he wanted, because he was empty, he couldn't create anything with value or meaning to it, so he decides to just be more like Suna, or protect people and protect Suna even. So I was like, yeah, that's neat. Oh, and I like the aspect where because Iemitsu, I think, forced Suna to be his ally more or less, and like they have Colonel sniping, and there's the whole exchange where like just because they're Suna's allies doesn't mean they're allies with each other. So like Iemitsu's ready to take down Byakuran.
Yeah.
But and Suna's like, wait, they're our allies, and it's like, well, okay, then you're not our allies anymore. So just interesting the way that sort of like the alliances didn't mesh well, and ended up breaking down. Anyway, I don't think it's my favorite fight, but we also get Hibari against Devaria, which
it's just cool in concept.
Yeah, right. And just the way it turns out is funny. So yeah, Suna fights Iemitsu again, and is being taught what he lacks. Reborn's catchphrase is explained as him being unable to say chaos as a baby. And fucking Suna pulling a Yamamoto and just like, who's that? I don't recognize you. Up to the fucking end of the manga is like, okay, motherfucker. He just completely can't see Reborn as like, and the way, building off the earlier joke where he's trying to imagine what an adult Reborn might look like, and it's just like fucking regular Reborn, but with a
Yeah.
a more adult, like Go-Go 13 ass face, and it's like, oh god.
Yeah, and it's just like there's like the initial reaction where, you know, they do like the face plant of like, how does he not recognize this is Reborn? And then like something else happens, and it's like, oh, he's gotta know now. Like, it's so obvious. And it's like, did you see a guy in a suit just now?
And Reborn's like, nope, didn't. So there were no mirrors. But yeah, Reborn gives Suna his lesson, and he's able to gather his resolve, you know, stop looking down on his father because of, you know, his understandable anger, since Iemitsu's kind of a deadbeat. But you know, the fight ends because of the time limit. And then we cut back to the fucking Hibari's face when he's behind Fawn, and he has the shadows over his eyes, and he's like, "What the fuck is going on?" Man? Like, Mukuro doesn't make faces, or not Mukuro. Hibari doesn't make faces like that, and it's good.
I also like the gag right before that where, you know, it's like the Varia are reacting to the fight, and Squallow's like, "You're okay, aren't you?" And it's like, "Yeah, I'm fine, but my watch is broken, though." And it's like, what? So you lost.
Squallow's so funny. He's so mad and angry. But also, so I was going to point out something I believe Lunaxer noted while he was watching and reading. Because Fawn, as an adult, looks a lot like Hibari. And they mentioned that he's Ipin's master. And also, so Ipin had a crush on Hibari because he looked like Fawn, basically. So, like, because she would get embarrassed and explode when she saw Hibari. So It's really that she has a crush on her master, and Hibari happens to look like him. So that was the connection he made that I was like, oh, okay, that interesting. I just didn't have an opportunity to bring it up before because we barely saw adult Fawn in the manga. Like, this is the first time in the actual, like, chapters rather than just, like, a cover page. So,
I liked the page where the like hyper speed battle was portrayed with like inverted like colors.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, for sure.
Like, it's kind of unfortunate that it was just a one-time thing, because like I feel like that's a really cool like visual.
Mm-hmm. No, yeah, because usually I envision it more with like time stopping, probably because of like JoJo. But
yeah,
you know, but it's definitely time's being manipulated for sure. So yeah, it's pretty cool. Because yeah, it's only like 3 panels. So
yeah,
and yeah, Fawn being really strong means Mammon has to step in as an adult as well. Like, I definitely feel like every one of the Arcabuenos got a chance to shine as an adult, which, you know, because I definitely feel like there's that, like, we gotta see what these guys can do, right?
Yeah.
From the audience. So, you know, she delivered. And then Dino comes in. Like, this fight is just chaos. Like, Reborn's saying chaos over there fighting Iemitsu, but he's missing out on the real chaos. Like, just shit's going on over there. And of course, Dino hits Zanzis's "Oh, you lost the Suna" button and pisses him. He's so angry. And then the part I really love where the match ends, so Hibari just breaks his fucking thing so he can fight anyway.
Yeah.
Which is so Hibari. It's so perfect. And Zenz is about to do the same thing, but they stop him because they're like, no, what the fuck are you doing? They're so good. Because yeah, like Zanzis, like Hibari was obviously there in the Varia stuff, but you know, he didn't really interact with Zanzis as much. And then having this more lighthearted, in a sense, interaction where it's like, yeah, do they want to kill each other? But yes, they do. But you know, just seeing him laugh and going to break his wristwatch is good.
Mm-hmm.
So anyway, Shimon family gets wrecked by the what's their faces? The bad guys. You know who I'm talking about. The Vindice. Vindice? Vindice? I don't fucking know. I bet all of those were wrong.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know any better, so I can't correct you.
Anyway, Bermuda's group, there's a way to pronounce it, or say it, sort of takes over. So yeah, there's another break in the fighting. We see Kyoko, which is rare nowadays, it feels like.
Yeah.
Chrome wants to fight, but she's, not quite healthy enough yet. But anyway, Bermuda's group comes in to fight without the rules because they're assholes.
And then immediately after that happens, it's like, oh, okay, fighting begins now.
Yeah.
It's just like, ah, shit.
Right? But yeah, Imitsu's team gets knocked out. Yeah, but a bunch of them are wounded. Like, Zanzis has got bandages, so shit got fucked. Mukuro Suna team up is nice, though.
Yeah, no, you really do get, like... You get little moments where Suna teams up with, like, a lot of the... like, there's the Byakuran moment in the last battle, and then there's one with Mukuro here. Don't really get one with Zanzis in the same way, but it's still interesting.
Yeah. That would have been neat, actually, come to think of it, just because, like, they are such opposites where, like, Zanzis is just so angry and Suna, like, never gets angry. But anyway, Mukuro and Suna team up, and they're able to knock the bandages off the Bermuda's gang people to find out that they are corpses.
It just occurred to me that, like, we're past the point now where, like, of the antagonists kind of, like, sacrificing each other and not really, like...
Oh, yeah?
Like, how in the beginning it's like, oh, Byakuran and Mukuro and people like... And, like, Zanzis just treated their... they weren't really friends with the people they were working with. They were just, like, pawns. But they've all kind of come around on that. And obviously, like, the last arc was the Shimon, where, like... They're just a family, basically.
That just happened to oppose Suna. And then even with this arc, I feel like they are pawns in the sense of, like, they're revived corpses, but, like, they're basically already dead, and even then he's still, like Bermuda's whole power, he powers them up with his flame, and he does take it back at the end, but like, they're already dead, and they're all, I'm pretty sure they all have the same goal in mind, so it doesn't feel the same at all.
Yeah, they're like united by the same cause, but not in the same way where, you don't get a moment with Bermuda where it's like, oh, I don't care about them. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Right, like, they're already all willing to sacrifice their lives anyway, and so even when Bermuda, like, takes their they don't even have lives, basically, so even when Bermuda takes their flame, it's like, it doesn't feel exploitative necessarily in a malicious sense that you might have gotten with, like, the other antagonists not giving a shit about their pawns, right? So, but yeah, Chrome comes in, and she's become strong enough to make her own illusory organs. Basically Mukuro, pulled away from her, so she was forced to, grow and rely on herself and her own strength, and yeah.
Yeah, no, I do like this conclusion for, like, as soon as she kind of came back and it was like, oh, Mukuro's not generating her organs anymore. And, like, she had to kind of... Because, it was like... I feel like Chrome has always been, like... I liked the initial premise of her dynamic with Mukuro, and there were aspects of it I liked. And it's not, like, I don't know how... what I think I would have liked more with how that was handled, but just something wasn't clicking with me. But I do like this as a conclusion where it's like, they had, it was kind of like they had like a symbiotic relationship, but then once Mukuro was back and that was her goal, instead of just like, fading away to nothing, she kind of had to stand on her own a bit, even if she's still like, she still wants to, like, be with Mukuro.
Yeah, but it's also not, like, she's not dependent on him, and now she's... Well, because what I realized thinking about it is because, she wants to protect Mukuro. Like, he often protected her, so she's sort of paying back what she was given. But maybe there's also a bend to it, like, because I was just thinking about how, like, a little later on you get, Suna as the student surpassing... or teaching the master, Reborn, basically, where he sort of, pushes back against Reborn and actually, like, succeeds, right? So, so she's not quite doing that, but she is, like, just, I guess it works as a kind of, like, another angle to there's a bit of a torch passing here, which is, easy, very common for a final arc to do. Fucking Naruto does it, Bleach does it, right? So it works.
Yeah, especially because, like, for her, it's like, the whole thing of her being, like, on the brink of death and, like, so dependent on this person that she's able to kind of like inherit that ability or power or like lessons she took from that, and like, you know, eventually be able to stand on her own 2 feet. It's like, it's definitely like, it's not my favorite character arc, I guess, with how it plays out, but you know, I do still think it's pretty solid.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know, maybe if I don't think she's a favorite character, but you know, she's good.
Yeah. And like their team up is able to do, you know, fucking break what, 2 of the watches of of the fucking Bermuda's gang, who are like incredibly strong. So it's like, you know, their team up has very tangible results, and it's like, that's pretty cool. Though of course, like, I guess because I was mentioning the torch passing thing, and Bermuda is focusing heavily on Reborn because he sees Reborn as the, you know, catalyst, which, you know, yeah, he's the one who you know, raised Suna a lot, and then he had a remark to Chrome that helped her out. So he's sort of putting all of it onto Reborn. When, you know, as far what I would say is like, you know, yeah, Reborn, you know, sure, he said the thing, but it was ultimately the character he said it to who you know, acted on that and responded to that, right? Like they could have easily just turned around and done nothing. Right. So which is especially apparent when Suna pushes back against Reborn later, and he's ultimately the one who resolves, you know, both the final fight and just the final the whole conflict. You know, so yeah.
Yeah, I definitely think as far as like kind of teacher-student dynamic goes, you know, it's not exactly the same to be like comparing like Mukuro's role to Chrome as Reborn's to
definitely not
Suna.
Definitely not. Yeah.
But it's like the one I like more in concept, but the other I like more in execution. I don't know if that means anything.
I feel like I get what you mean, but we'll have to, you know, we'll talk about it more. But yeah, Reborn isn't like, he tells Suna to ignore the boss watch and just, you know, fight like his life depends on it, because like as he frames it, it's like, you know, he's not as interested as becoming an adult again and breaking the curse. He just wants to focus on, you know, helping Suna basically, like, and he pulls out the fucking test where he's got a fucking 0, and it's like, you know, I clearly need to train you more. And they fucking keep bringing it up, like Suna pulls off an awesome move and drops the Bermuda gang guy, and both Reborn and the lady in Mukuro's gang, are like, you know, wow, you can fight like that, but you keep getting it, you got a 0 on a test. It's like, or Reborn's like, if only your test scores could improve like that. Like, they just keep fucking dragging him for it. But yeah, Bermuda tries to recruit Reborn, and he drags him and Suna in so they can talk about the curse of the Arcabaleno. We find out what the deal is with both the corpses and what the curse is. Yeah, and Reborn doesn't want to, or you know, he's, I guess Bermuda took an interest in him because he was already like willing to sacrifice himself, or not he wasn't obsessed with like returning basically. So Bermuda asks him to help in a scheme that would have leave all the Arcabaleno dead, but you know, Reborn, like, I know he wants you need to live, I'm pretty sure, you know, even if he doesn't care about his own life. So and of course Bermuda's whole thing is that he's defined by his hatred, which, you know, Reborn definitely isn't, and neither is Suna. So yeah, I did like this side of the conflict kind of pushing Suna to a point where, you know, he had to like stand up for himself against Reborn, and like, I'm not gonna let you die, you know, if I have the option of stopping it. And it was cool. Yeah, also, it's interesting because I'm curious as to what the volume scans look like, because after they turned down Bermuda, Jaeger, like the way he's drawn is interesting, because like there's like, how do I put this? It almost looks like draft drawings. Like he's not all like, because there's the original like rough draft, then there's a penciling stage with like less detail, and then there's the inking stage. It almost looks like somewhere between the inking and the penciling stage with how Jaeger's drawn in the fight, you know, where he's less shaded and he looks, but it, you know, and then there's like the transparencies with his chains and stuff to, I guess, you know, it's a different way to show off his speed basically, because he's incredibly strong. So yeah, just something I just thought it was neat the way he was drawn in that panel. But yeah, Reborn brings up the issue with the other Archipelano, and they're, not as into all dying, or they're not into
had to
it
get
really
a little had to get a little Lambo moment in this arc somewhere.
Yeah, I mean, I was actually, I had realized that just like he wasn't involved in the fighting at all this arc, but he did have this moment which is kind of reminiscent of like the stuff with Kyoko in Future, where it's Suna is very different from the Mafia, and here he is taking an idea from just the people in his life that he cares about. Lambo is from the Mafia world, but like in this arc, he's basically just a baby, right? A toddler, a young kid who's just being a little piece of shit. It's not your fucking juice, asshole.
This arc definitely broke the structure of, the Seven Guardians. It was a little more kind of freeform, being like battle royale and stuff. So it was interesting, like who got to do things and who kind of just had more of a support role.
Yeah. Because especially like I mentioned Gudera and Yamamoto earlier, where it's like, because they've been, the 2 and 3 for like what felt like the whole manga, and this arc they just take the backseat, and it's focused more on, again, these former antagonists, all who like now I'm getting to the point where Suna's he talks about meeting, he wants to talk to them, and so we get that later with the big meeting with everyone pretty much, as he comes up, explains his plan, and then we get the part where he's talking to Reborn by the shrine, which might be one of my favorite parts in the arc, because I just like, because from the beginning I was not like Reborn, him just being kind of really mean to Suna, and it's like me just struggling to get behind behind that, like, even though he's kind of a, like, he whines a lot, but I can't, with what he gets fucking forced into, I can't really like bemoan that too much. And then him finally finding the strength to push against Reborn and turn the master into the student is just it was really good. The charms they make, I'm just looking, because Suna continues to gather people, and they're making safety, the girls are making safety charms for everyone, and I just like looked at them a little closer, and it's like there's a dynamite stick for Gokudera, there's a baseball for Yamamoto. I'm not 100% sure who the fish is for, but they're cute that they're personalized. And then they show up and the meeting's happening, and there's just fucking mafia people everywhere. Byakuran is flying, like they're like, what the fuck is going on?
Hibari just sleeping on the roof.
Just Stevie chilling.
But this is also really cool that, he really is doing like the stuff a mafia head would do, where he's forming all these alliances and, making all the orders, and it's cool.
Yep. No, he rallies everyone. He explains it, and he gets everyone on board, and it's cool, right? But Reborn tries to take the watch back, and Suna continues to reject it. And like the fact that he, Reborn, who he mentioned that when he was turned into a baby, he kind of expected that he wouldn't have a great death or a worthwhile life, but then Suna, makes him want to, or pushes him to want to keep living. And it's like, good. Then we start our last fight against Bermuda.
Gokudera's fucking dead. Oh,
no!
Wait. Never mind.
Like the way it like shakes up is interesting, because like they even sort of talk about it where like Jaeger's the strongest and he's fighting alongside Bermuda, but he's not fighting Suna, even though Suna, they put him on a different team with people who use the flames in a similar way.
It's basically like there being the 3 separate fights. It all kind of boils down to stalling so that Suna can come in and take care of things, because he's like the ace.
Also, there's the thing with Gingerbread, who is apparently connected to one of the guys, and it's like, okay, sure, whatever. Because that was a character in Future, I'm pretty sure. But whatever. But it also works out because like Suna fighting all the weaker guys, like he's able to get experience with them. Like he catches on to the breathing. But of course, when fucking Jaeger gets serious, he fucking gets serious. So he just starts, like, he fucking rips off Xanthus's arm, and then he takes out Squallow's heart, and he's just like it's just got very much like it was an oh shit moment where he because these are strong characters he's just knocking out like it's nothing. So
Yeah, I did think it was funny in like the hospital part after the fact where it's like you got stabbed in the heart. It's like, oh, luckily we created an illusory heart, and it's like, yeah, okay, I believe that.
Yeah, for the cost of like 18 million a day or something stupid like that, where it's like, yeah.
I guess it's also just to the point with where we're at with the podcast, where we've read so many of these shonen manga that I think I'm kind of over like we got to explain, because readers are going to blow a gasket if it's like, wait, this character died. Why are they alive? There's got to be an explanation. And I'm just like, it's going to happen. The death fake outs are real. Doesn't bother me.
Yeah, it's just a thing.
Because I don't think it's anything, that they played it up where like, oh God, he's fucking dead. It's just like, oh, he got fucked up. That's not good.
Yeah, no, I feel like as far as the death fake outs goes, we probably got a lot of that out of our system after, like, I think between Fairy Tail, which does that a lot, where it's like, and then Yu Yu Hakusho, which not only does that, but then rubs it in your face after. I mostly think about Kuwabara with Toguro, where it's like, fucking Kuwabara fucking dies. And then Yusuke has this really big thing, and he beats Toguro, and it's great. And then Kuwabara's just like fucking dancing, and like it's just being a shit that he's still alive. And it's like there's just a quote from Love Lab where it's like, "Give me back my tears." I always think about that, where it's like, I don't know. But anyway, Verde steps up. He gets a big old Mosca robot. And yeah, like you said, it's basically just biding time. Hibari gets a little moment where he saves Dino and pays his debt.
Yeah, you get the little Hibari Mukuro team up, but it's like they hate each other.
So when they're working together, they gotta be up against something fucking serious. But yeah, Suna arrives, and even then he just fucking takes out everyone he arrives with. Like, Jager's just he's got a high body count for a character who isn't in the manga that long. And also isn't even, like, he's like the third to last. Oh, okay, no, I guess they don't really fight Checkerface. Or wait, do they? Fuck. I don't even fucking remember. I feel like they don't, but anyway, Sun is able to defeat Jager with help from Hibari and Mukuro. And then I feel like we were talking about peaks and valleys with the art. And so Bermuda unleashes his gift and becomes an adult, and I immediately went like, no, I don't like it. Like, in a series full of handsome men, she draws that, and I'm like, no, get away
it's
from
so
me.
Goofy.
It's so it looks gross. I don't like it.
It's like it's I'm not sure if it's creepy in a goofy way or goofy in a creepy way, but I thought it was silly.
I didn't think of it. No, I mean, I guess I didn't think of it as creepy, but it's just so weird. But anyway, Reborn comes out and he gives Suna the dying will bullet, and it's a cool like full circle moment. Like he's not even using any of the gear or any of that shit. He's just like they even frame it where Bermuda had the flame because he was consumed by hatred, where Suna it's hope and despair. It's Danganronpa. And you also get possibly the second funniest page of the reading when Bermuda does his big circle to accelerate and go really fast, and then he just and then he comes down from above, and just that page where he just goes into Suna's fist was so good. I fucking lost it. It's a good punch. He just fucking gets his ass. And then immediately after that, Checkerface comes out, and then we get the funniest moment of the manga.
Oh yeah.
Where Checkerface unmasks himself and he's like, "Yep, I was old man Kawahira the whole time." Remember that guy who Ethan was delivering noodles to in the beginning, who also showed up in the future arc to help out for a little? I was the big bad. The part that got me the most is because there's that one Naruto meme where it's like, pain is being manipulated by Obito, who is being manipulated by Madara, who is being manipulated by Black Zetsu, who is being manipulated by Kaguya, who is being manipulated by the ramen guy. This is literally that. The characters associated with ramen was actually manipulating everything the whole time. I was fucking dead for like a minute because I just fell back in my chair and I was just giggling over it for like a fucking whole ass minute of my life because it's so stupid. Why? It's so funny. Of all characters, she chose the funniest one it could be. I don't know how she could have topped that.
Yeah, for me it was just kind of like, okay, moving on.
It's so dumb.
Because, I mean, that really is all it is. It's like, yep, it's me, and then just puts the mask back on, and it's like, okay, that happened.
It's so stupid. I love it.
It's goofy.
But yeah, we get a bunch of lore with how the Trinicete work, and how they were tied to the life of the planet, and they had to be split up so that they could continue into the three different, the Mare rings, the Mongola rings, and the pacifiers. And then what I really like how it factors in, or how it works, where it's like Suna just fucking explains his plan, and he's like, yeah, that might work. Let's do it. And then even fucking Bermuda is like, well, I was already willing to throw my life away to stop this, so it's like, yeah, I'll use my flame to continually, keep this going so that we can, keep the planet alive. And he's like, there's no fight or conflict. They just like, yeah, this is a good idea. Let's do it. And it's just, I really like that. It's cool. Another thing I like is how it doesn't just end right away. There's actually a few chapters like cool off before the ending happens.
Yeah.
But I wonder if someone mentioned the series. Because I obviously I know you're interested in the series because of the the protagonist, the insecure shonen protagonist.
Yeah.
But I also just had a thought as I wonder if someone mentioned the series because you brought up like really abrupt.
Yeah,
endings.
the manga where it's like the second to last chapter is the end of the final battle and then it's just over.
Yeah, where this one, like, the conflict resolves in chapter 406, and there's a good, like, 2 or 3 chapters after that, which was neat.
I imagine for this one, it also kind of works as, like, it started off with the episodic comedy, so it kind of goes back to that sort of in the end.
Mm-hmm.
Where, it's like, here's a chapter where it's like, oh, I have to confess to Kyoko.
Yes. Oh, yeah, for sure. That chapter is 100%, like, I mean, it's even a reference. I'm pretty sure it's a reference to the chapter. Yeah, no, it is a reference to the original chapter where that happened.
And also just the chapter where they're all in the hospital and they just keep progressively breaking the hospital, and then they run into more characters, and then they break more of the hospital and more characters show up, and
yeah, like fucking Zanzis just pulling out his gun and shooting like giant fucking laser beams. And then
they're just like dancing out of the way.
Hibari's just got a flock of he-birds now.
Yes.
It's so good.
Wait, but do any of them have the pompadour? I don't think so.
I see some fluffier ones on his shoulder. They're sleeping. But no, I don't see any pompadour ones. Like 2 of them are using his head as a nest, and it's like, good.
Oh, right. That also reminds me in the fight where he and Mukuro were like going down. He said something like it's up to you, tiny animal, or something like that.
Yes.
And it was just like a cool callback to the best fight in the series.
Yeah.
Do I have a second favorite fight in the series?
No comment. But yeah, then he gets a little talk with Reborn, and it's just like, who was that guy?
Yeah.
Everyone's like, you really don't know? Fucking dumbass.
Yeah, he just never finds out. It's good.
I also thought it was silly when Bianchi's like, so I had this burger, it makes a yellow smoke, so that it neutralizes the pink smoke. So it's just an ordinary burger. Because the two, like, Reborn's just, like, looking at it and not eating it. Like, it's just like, okay, I haven't seen this in a hot fucking minute. And then, Haru has a cute little moment where she, gives him a cake and, asks him to pay more attention. And she's just good expressions. I don't know.
Yeah.
And then, of course, yeah, I get the dying will confession, back in the underwear again. I was thinking about, like, oh, shouldn't he have had his underwear during the final fight? But it's like, oh, that would have exactly what I said. That would have kind of fucked with the emotions of it a little bit. But
that was a new kind of dying will.
That's fair. No, they changed the rules. I even talked about that way back when. Yeah, Suna goes out and confesses.
Even with the dying will, it's like he still doesn't quite get it out, because then it's like, oh, I have to go save them.
Yep, and she's, praises them, and lots of big panels with cute girls in these last couple chapters.
So it really is like, not much changed, but you barely changed.
Yep,
and
it's also nice getting the I'm looking at the 2 color spreads with all the characters.
Yeah,
looks cool. Or maybe it was a big 4-page like fold out spread. Now I'm looking at it again. But I don't know, even the way it's split up on my thing, it like they could be individual pages. Like there isn't a lot there. It doesn't seem to be any like there's parts on the edges of the pages where they're going off page, but they don't show up on any of the other pages. So I don't know. Just paying attention. I was just noticing it. But yeah, Suna doesn't want to become the 10th still. It has some moments of being lame, and but yeah, like you said, Reborn notices that he barely changed, but he did change. He has friends, and he is a bit stronger. And
it's also funny that if you don't intend to become the 10th, I have no intention of staying any longer. But it's like he was the tutor to make that happen, so he just comes back, and it's like, all right, the Neo
Vongola
Primo Vongola.
Yeah. Fucking silly. And yeah, then it ends off with a title drop where it's like, he's my teacher and my partner, home tutor Hitman Reborn. And yep, there it is. We did it. We finished the manga. What do you want to start with? Characters, fights, or arc ranking?
So I guess in terms of fights, because I don't have a full list of 5. I kind of forgot that was I did the characters and the arcs and then forgot about the fights. But just thinking off the top of my head, I would definitely say my favorite fight is still Hibari and
Adelaide.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, I'd said it because you would struggle, and I understand.
Yeah. I did remember when I said I couldn't think of any other fights. I did remember liking Squallow and Yamamoto in the Varia arc.
Yeah, I'm just gonna say fights that I like because I like both of those as well. Probably the one that got me to really start getting into the manga, I would say, would probably be Suna versus Mukuro, and that still had the moment with the bullet that made him hear what all of his friends and loved ones were talking about him, and that was I still think about that moment as a good Reborn moment. So that was a pretty cool fight.
I'd also say I remember really liking the climax to the inheritance ceremony where they fought the first generation guy.
Daemon, right?
Yeah,
because I generally like the final fights were good. Like you mentioned, Yamamoto versus Squallow. That was a good one. Were there any other fights from the Varia arc that I really liked? I mean, aside from Suna versus all of the big fights Suna versus Byakuran and Suna versus Zanzis were pretty good. I can't think of any other ones off the top of my head. Characters though are pretty easy. It's Suna is good. Hibari, it was my favorite. I do like Zanzis. He's an angry boy. And then after that, there's a bunch of characters I like, but I can't think of anyone who obviously I like Yamamoto and Gokudera, so those would probably be who I'd throw in there if I had to pick 5. I can't think of anyone else who I like. Would add to that list of 5 as far as characters I was into.
I kind of had something similar.
Squallow's up there.
I kind of had something similar where I feel I definitely had I definitely had a top 4 or 5, and there are a lot of characters that I like but don't love to that extent. But the 5 that I wrote down were Hibari number 1, Squallow number 2, Suna 3, Mukuro 4, and then I had Enma at 5.
Okay, yeah, no, that checks out. Mukuro is also good. but I think I'll stick to my 7, which is already cheating, because I don't know who I'd cut off the top of my head, because I did not sit down and make a list. I just figured I'd spitball it as we went. So then that's fine. So yeah, I guess last is arcs. So I'll start off with I'd say my least favorite arc was probably the daily life, just because it was it was fun, I guess, but like wasn't invested in the characters, and so a lot of the humor eventually started dragging down, and it just ended up being kind of rough to get through. Though again, it now it'd be interesting to read through because I have more attachment to the characters. But and seeing some of the references, right, like Suna being associated with a lion is that's something that I only picked up on because other people were talking about it. But it's seeing. It's part of why it's still part of why I think the manga is interesting. Then it's probably Kokyo with Mukuro, where it's like it's good. It was a neat transition. Like it wasn't completely serious, but it still did. It had one of my favorite fights. Or one of the most memorable fights as part of that transition. Then I'd probably say Future, just because like it was again it had good stuff, but it was so fucking long, and it was a little rough to get through. And it wasn't as interesting as it was for its length. It definitely didn't have as much intrigue going on for my interest in it. So even though Byakuran's a good antagonist, but it just doesn't have the density I would hope, or the interest. Anyway, then probably the Curse of the Archipelago, which it's just a neat little final arc. And where obviously my favorite is the Inheritance Ceremony, where as far as like pound for pound like good stuff, like for its length, it's just easily like the best arc, So because I really like the Shaman family and their dynamics with the Vongul family, and just that conflict was just super good, and it was good.
I think my arc ranking would have been.
Oh wait, shit! I missed.
The rainbow battle,
the Varia arc, the scramble for the rings.
Oh,
that was, it's on my list. My brain just went from Future to Curse of the Archipelago, but no, scramble for the rings would have been there just because, especially the Xanthus and Squalo fights. But just it was a shorter arc that just had a bit more going for it, and just like seeing the Vongola characters come into their own, and having this sort of the conflicts against the Varia in regards to like who is the best fit as that guardian. It was neat. I liked it. Not quite as much as Curse of Archipelago, but more than Future. So my bad.
My arc ranking would have been the daily life comedy introduction at the bottom, which is not surprising. Like you said, it was interesting seeing what got called back to. And so, like, for that, it would be interesting in retrospect, but I just didn't think it was funny. Most of the time. It did have some stuff that was good, but, not for me. So wait, there are 6 arcs, right?
Yes.
Okay, so then at number 5, I had the Future arc. It had, like, good fights and conflicts in it, and like you said, Byakuran was a good antagonist. I feel like for me, granted, it's also coupled with the scans going to shit, so that kind of exaggerated the problems I had with it. It just felt like it was, for me, a little too bogged down in like exposition and like explaining the mechanics of like why we're in the future and how these it had to do a lot. Like it established the power system with the box weapons and stuff. And like with all the stuff with the future characters, it just felt a little messy to me, I guess. And ordinarily I like those really long, like bombastic arcs, but that one in particular, it was like there were like multiple little training portions in it, so it kind of felt like the payoff of one training session didn't necessarily amount to anything at certain points. So I just felt like it was an arc that maybe could have been structured better, or I'm not really sure. It felt like the length didn't really do it favors here. Then at 4 I had Kokyo, because it was really interesting seeing it go from comedy to action, and Mukuro is great. You already mentioned like the dying will, like bullet, hearing the comrades and stuff. It was cool. Number 3 I had the rainbow battle, whatever it's called, the last arc. does a lot of cool things to kind of wrap the series up. It just wasn't the conflict I was the most invested in.
Yeah.
Number 2 was the Varia, because I just remember there being a lot of cool fights and really like establishing kind of what the Guardians would be going forward. And yeah, like you said, good contrast between Zanzis and Suna. And then number 1 obviously is the Inheritance Ceremony. It was like the one arc where I was like, oh, I love this. This is good. And
Yep.
like I said, I read through it in a day, basically, because it was just that easy to go through. And like you said, it wasn't the longest arc, but it felt like there was a lot of good, like, it did what it had to do well, and I was emotionally invested in, like, the bond between Enma and Suna, and the way it paid off at the end with kind of their powers combining and having to beat the daemon, or however you say
Yes.
it. And like Chrome got a cool moment there. Yeah, it was just a good conflict.
Yeah. So that does it for Reborn. I mean, not only has it been, like you mentioned, been a minute since we finished the manga, but this is also a manga with like no spin-off content. Like, I think the last one we finished was Saint Seiya, but even then it's like, are we really done with Saint Seiya when there's 2 other manga to read? And it's like, no. So we're just straight up done. There's nothing else Reborn. I mean, there's like stage shows and shit, but I don't think we could have access to those. Not as manga for sure. But yeah, we're just completely done with Reborn. Yay. So anyway, next time, as mentioned, we're reading Shaman King, chapters 1 through 53. So hope we have a good time, and see you next time. Read along with us, hopefully. And yeah, goodbye.